33,000 pounds per square inch. That's the bite force of a single marine reptile that collapsed Jurassic prey populations by a third. The reason an entire era lived in terror of pliosaurs starts with a skull locked in Arctic ice. The skull that surfaced from Svalbard's permafrost stretched 2.5 meters, longer than a modern sedan. Its jaws, lined with conical teeth as thick as a man's wrist, belonged to Pliosaurus funki, a predator so immense that even its fossilized remains dwarf most marine reptiles ever found. Dr. Jorn Hurum, who first examined the specimen, called it a masterpiece of destructive engineering. Finite element analysis at the University of Oslo mapped the stress patterns across this skull, revealing a structure built to withstand forces that would shatter bone and shell alike. The reinforced cranial sutures, those interlocking seams between skull plates, acted like shock absorbers, distributing the impact of every bite. When researchers ran digital simulations, the results were astonishing. A peak bite force of 62 kilonewtons, or about 14,000 pounds force. That's enough pressure to crush a four-wheel drive truck in a single clamp. The pressure at the tooth tips, 33,000 pounds per square inch, surpasses the crushing power of any modern crocodile, any bear, even the infamous Tyrannosaurus rex. But the numbers only hint at the reality. This was a skull designed not for scavenging or opportunistic feeding, but for absolute domination. Every element, from the massive temporal arches anchoring jaw muscles to the deep, rigid lower mandible, served a single purpose: to deliver unstoppable force. In the Jurassic seas, no ammonite shell or armored fish was safe from those jaws. The scale of Pliosaurus, 12 meters from snout to tail, with a head that could engulf a grown human, sent a clear message to every other creature in its domain. Here was a predator whose bite was not just powerful, but final. For Dr. Hurum and his team, holding the fossilized jaws was like staring down the barrel of prehistory's most powerful weapon. The next question: how did such a beast deliver that force in the water, and what did it mean for everything else that called the Jurassic Ocean home? Acceleration in the Jurassic seas was not left to chance. Pliosaurus funki wielded 4 massive flippers, each shaped for maximum thrust and control. In 2024, computational fluid dynamics models revealed a peak thrust of 150 kilonewtons, more than twice the force generated by the largest living whales. That power translated into speed. From a dead stop, this predator could surge to 20 kilometers per hour in under 3 seconds. For prey, there was no margin for error. The 4-flipper arrangement did more than deliver raw speed. It gave Pliosaurus the agility to pivot, roll, and launch itself in any direction, outmaneuvering rivals and victims alike. But brute force meant nothing without the ability to find prey in an ocean where visibility often dropped to 0. Anatomical studies of the nasal passages uncovered a labyrinth of turbinated chambers, hinting at a hydraulic olfactory system unlike anything in modern reptiles. Water was drawn through the snout and across a vast sensory surface, actively sampling for chemical traces. Modeling showed that at cruising speed, the flow rate through these chambers increased by nearly a third. That detection meant Pliosaurus could detect the scent of blood or decay from miles away, tracking a wounded ichthyosaur or the faintest whiff of carrion drifting through the current. Naval engineer Professor M. Lee, whose team ran the 2024 simulations, called the Pliosaur's propulsion the most efficient 4-limb thrust system ever reconstructed. In his words, no submarine, no engineered vehicle comes close to this combination of acceleration and maneuverability. For the Jurassic Ocean, it was a nightmare scenario. A predator that could appear anywhere, at any time, with no warning. Strength alone did not make Pliosaurus the king. It was the union of unstoppable movement and relentless detection. a living weapon whose reach extended far beyond the limits of sight or sound. In the Oxford Clay and Sundance formations, the fossil record reads like a crime scene report. Statistical surveys of mid-water fish species show a 30% drop in richness within the interval, matching the arrival of Pliosaurus funki. Before its appearance, nearly 45 species of actinopterygians filled the column. Afterward, that number plunged to 31. Relative abundance tells the same story. Teleosts fell from over 40% of specimens to less than 30. At the same time, the frequency of armored, defensive fish rose sharply, a sign of escalating predation pressure. Phil Jacobs, whose field notes from the Dorset coast describe a 2024 skull find, cataloged bite marks in remarkable detail. He measured punctures on an ichthyosaur rib, each spaced almost exactly 3.5 centimeters apart, the same as the tooth rows of Pliosaurus funki. These wounds, with their conical impressions and radiating fractures, match no other marine predator of the era. In the same stratigraphic layers, the number of prey fossils bearing such marks triples, while only 2% of layers show any sign of being free from large predator activity. The evidence stacks up: a sudden prey decline, a fingerprint of bite marks, and a live predation event in Dorset that ties the killer to its victims. Forensic paleontology leaves little doubt. Pliosaurus funki did not just inhabit the Jurassic seas. It reshaped them, driving a wave of fear and adaptation that left an indelible mark on the fossil record. The courtroom of paleontology has seen its share of sensational claims, but none more persistent than the legend of Leopleurodon, a creature once depicted by the BBC as an 80-foot monster, dwarfing even Pliosaurus funki. Dr. Andre Rowe, a leading authority on marine reptiles, calls this portrayal a spectacular exaggeration. Peer-reviewed measurements put Leopleurodon at a modest 7 meters, while the true giants, Pliosaurus and Kronosaurus, rarely exceeded 10 to 12 meters. The myth of the 80-foot sea dragon dissolves under the weight of actual fossil data. But size alone does not settle the question of dominance. In 2023, a groundbreaking isotope study analyzed oxygen ratios in Pliosaur tooth enamel. The results were decisive. Pliosaurus maintained a body temperature 5 to 10 degrees Celsius above the surrounding seawater. This physiological edge, a kind of prehistoric warm-bloodedness, meant faster muscle recovery, longer high-speed pursuits, and an ability to hunt in colder waters where rivals slowed to a crawl. Dr. Rowe summarizes the verdict. When you combine the real measurements with the metabolic evidence, the case is closed. Pliosaurus funki wasn't just the biggest predator in the Jurassic seas. It was the most relentless. The myth of the 80-foot Leopleurodon is overruled. The title of apex predator belongs, beyond reasonable doubt, to Pliosaurus. Apex dominance leaves a mark deeper than fossils. Even now, the ocean's top predators echo ancient power struggles. Nature's rulers change, but the fear of giants never truly fades.